Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our Clallam EDC Coffee Chat this morning. We are really pleased to have some professionals from Washington State Department of Transportation joining us to discuss the latest on the fish passage construction work and potentially roundabouts and all the different construction projects that are going on with the state roads that traverse through Clallam County, and they may touch on some on Jefferson too, which of course affect us, and the Hood Canal Bridge. So with that, just a few housekeeping details. If you would please put your Zoom on mute so we don't inadvertently pick up any background noise, that would be terrific. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put those into the chat. Or if you'd prefer, you can certainly raise your hand and we'll call on you. They have about 19 slides, so this should be a fairly quick presentation. And if you have any questions that are kind of outside of what they're presenting, we can ask those towards the end. These folks are more with the construction side of things rather than design, other than I think Piper, I understand. But so please feel free to share your questions. We do like this to be interactive if possible. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to one of the Washington State Department of Transportation professionals. Take it away.
I'll start it off. I'm Ben Ford. I'm the project engineer in the Port Angeles office. I've been the PE in Port Angeles for about 2 months since April. So I'm newer up to the area, and I've been with WSDOT for 2 years. But I'm your main contact for construction activities occurring out of the Port Angeles office. Piper.
Hi there, I'm Piper Pettit. I work in the design office here in North Central region, but we have been working on fish passage for the Olympic region and Port Angeles area since about 2014. And so we're pretty familiar with the area and really enjoy getting to know all of you and working in your community too. Brian.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Whitehouse. I'm the Assistant Region Construction Engineer in Olympic Region. So I work on the construction side. I help out 4 of our design and construction project offices, the Port Angeles office, the Tacoma office, the Port Orchard office, and the Aberdeen office. Been with WSDOT about 18 years. Mark?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Krulish. I am the public information officer, one of the public information officers here in the Olympic region at WSDOT, and I serve the Port Orchard and Port Angeles project offices, as well as our planning office.
All right.
Great.
I think,
Thank you.
Piper, are you going to share your screen here? Like Colleen said, we have a presentation here. I believe it's about 19 slides or so. I'm going to kick it off and we'll kind of rotate through the presentation. I'm going to kick it off with kind of just a general overview of all the construction we have coming up in our region and specific to your area in 23 and 24. And then I'll transition over into some more specifics that Ben's project office up in the Port Angeles area is working on. I think from there, Piper's going to take on some of the design and construction work that they have going on in the PA SQUIM area, and then Mark's going to finish with some communications information and how to stay up to date. So if we could go to the next slide, please, that'd be great. All right, so this is just a general slide showing our overall Olympic region and the whole area that we're responsible for maintenance and construction of. There's some statistics up there in the upper right hand corner. We are made up, Olympic region, of 7 counties. It's about 48 cities. We work with a bunch of different tribes, 13 tribes and 7 transit agencies. Overall, there's 3,000 plus lane miles of roadway within our region. 645 plus bridges, and we serve about 1.8 million customers. So on the map there, you're looking at a number of different color-coded triangles. Those represent our maintenance and engineering facilities. So you can see we do have some combination maintenance and engineering facilities shown in the red, maintenance only facilities shown in the orange, and then our engineering only offices shown in blue. So that's just a general slide giving you an idea of all of the construction and design we're responsible for as part of our region. Jumping to the next. Oh,
Ben, I've got a question about that last slide. How many different regions are there in the state, and how did the state divide it up into regions? And are there just as many lane miles? And did you do it by lane miles or by population?
That is a really good question, Colleen. I'm not sure how they made the division. I don't know if it's by lane miles. I can tell you that there's Olympic region, there's Northwest region, which is pretty much from the Fife curve up to the Canadian border. There is the North Central region, which is Piper's region, which is sort of Wenatchee, straight up north to the Canadian border. Eastern region is all of the Spokane area. South Central region is kind of Yakima all the way over to the Oregon-Idaho border. And then Southwest region is kind of the Vancouver, all the way out to Oahu. So everything southwest coast is Southwest region. So that's how we're broken up. And then of course we have our ferries division too. I forget about our ferries division, but that's another division that we do have. I'm not sure, Piper, Ben, Mark, do you know how they broke up the regions?
I thought it was a grouping of counties originally. So I don't know if that followed originally in the lines of legislative districts or what way back in the day, but I think they've been pretty well established for some time now. And so it's not necessarily an even number of lane miles to my knowledge. So, different regions tend to have their focus areas or things they do more of. We're known as a chip seal region over here. But,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Piper, can you jump to the next slide, please? All right, so a lot of information on this slide. This is 2023 construction projects that are happening in our region, in Olympic region that I just showed you. The major thing I want to point out here is you'll see two different icons on this map. You will see an icon that looks like a little fish, and you will see a circular black icon. So the designation between those two, anything with the fish, is what we call one of our fish passage projects. And we're going to get into more depth here in some further slides that are going to discuss exactly what we mean by fish passage projects. We're going to talk about the injunction a little bit, so we'll explain all the details of that later on. Specific to the area that you see in red, those are probably the projects that you folks are most interested in. I am going to go through in detail most of those projects in coming slides, but starting on the left-hand side, the number one over there is just south of Forks. That is called our May Creek Vicinity Downs Creek Fish Barrier Project. That's going to be kicking off in 2023. Number 11 is the Pish River Emergency Repair Project. Number 38 is just off the screen for me here, but can you scroll down just a smidge?
Ryan, that's Indian Creek.
Oh, that's Indian Creek. Okay, so that's Indian Creek. That one is just about finished up. Number 23 is one of Ben's projects, the US 101 Elwha River Bridge that just kicked off. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. Fish passage icon number 22 is our US 101 Jefferson and Clallam County Fish Barrier projects. Piper's going to be talking about that one in detail in the coming slides. Number 24 is the US 101 Leland Creek project, remove fish barrier project, that is in active construction right now. So if you have recently traveled down 101 towards Quilcene, it's the project going on just a couple of miles north of Quilcene. Circle number 4 is the SR 104-19 in Paradise Bay Shine Road Roundabouts project. That one actually got pushed back just a little bit. It does say 2023 construction here. Ben's going to talk about it a little bit in the coming slides, but it is not going to start until early 24 now. Moving on to number 26, we have the Hood Canal Bridge Center Lock Rehabilitation Project. I'm going to talk about that one in a little more detail in the coming slides as well, and discuss some of the upcoming closures that we have. Number 25 is our East Jefferson County Remove Fish Barrier Project. So that involves Shine and Swansonville Creeks. And the last one shown there in the red circled area is number 6, which is our SR20 Kearney Street roundabout that will be starting here shortly. So just a big overview of the map of all the projects we have going on. As you can see, lots of stuff happening in 2023. We're trying to keep folks as well informed as we possibly can, knowing that we have lots of construction coming up. If we transition here to the next slide, we'll move into 2020. Okay, so this is 2023 specific construction up in your area that I wanted to focus on. It's kind of the projects that I already went through. There are a few added here that weren't on the list. If you'll look at number 11 that's shown there in the black square, those are our maintenance and preservation projects. So on top of all of the stuff I already discussed in the projects that I went through in your area, we also have a significant amount of maintenance and preservation work that's going to be happening at the same time. As you can see here, similar to the last page, the fish icons designate the fish passage only projects, whereas the circular icons represent any of our other style projects. It might be a bridge repair, it could be a scour repair, it could be a roundabout project, a variety of different projects going on. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I think that was a error. I put
Oh, okay.
that person on mute. We're good.
Okay. All right, so jumping into this slide, this is now our 2024 construction season up in your area. You will notice that you're seeing a lot of the same icons on the sheet as you saw on the 2023 page. The reason for that is a fair number of these projects are multi-season projects. So the construction is going to go through 2024 before we get them 100% complete. You will notice projects also shown in orange on this sheet, and those are the new projects that will be starting in 2024. So the first one I want to speak to here is number 12, fish passage icon number 12. That's our US 101 SR 116 North Olympic Peninsula project. Piper's going to be talking about that one in more detail in the coming slides. And also number 13, which is the US 101 SR 109 Grays Harbor, Jefferson, and Clallam County Fish Passage Project. And that one is also being called the Coastal 29 project. That is the 29 bundle fish passage project that's happening beginning in 24. And we do have a separate slide on that, and we'll be talking about that in the coming slides. So this is just meant to be a general overview showing you 2023, 2024, kind of what we have coming up in your area, and then we're going to get into some more details in the coming slides. Go ahead and jump to the next slide, please. All right, so focusing on Hood Canal Bridge specifically, we have a couple of big exciting projects coming up on Hood Canal Bridge. First one I want to speak to is a great project in the fact that we're making significant repairs to the bridge, and at the same time, I don't think the traffic is going to feel any pain from this project at all, because it's requiring next to no lane closures as a result. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, you can see some really nasty weather, corrosive environment. You also see two hatches shown right there on the screen. The NB/DC is what we call one of our Hood Canal Bridge hatches. That's one of the major projects that we have going on this summer on Hood Canal Bridge. We have to go in and replace a number of those hatches.
Can you point that out? Where are the hatches?
Sure, there you go. Can you see Piper's cursor there?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Got
those
it.
are the hatches. There's two of them shown right there on the left-hand side. Yep. So we're going in and replacing a bunch of those hatches on the Hood Canal Bridge. The reason I say no impact to traffic is because all of those hatches are located on the lower deck. So we are not going to need to take lanes or close the bridge or anything related to the Hood Canal hatch project. That project has actually been going on now for about a month or two, and there has been no impacts to traffic so far as a result of the hatches project. The other project that you probably are more familiar with is the Hood Canal Bridge Center Lock project, and that's the project that does have more impacts to traffic. I can talk about that one here in the coming slides, but really the intent of this screen was to show you Hood Canal Bridge. Some days I'm sure you drive across it and you know that it's just perfectly flat, and then some days it can look like it does there on the left-hand side. So we actually restrict our contractors to only work between May 1st and October 1st on the bridge because of the big tide swings and the inclement weather that can happen outside of those times. So you could imagine a contractor going in and trying to replace hatches on that lower deck when we've got those winds that we're showing in that last picture and spray and corrosion and everything occurring. So this slide that Piper just pointed to here just depicts that anytime we have very powerful southwest winds in combination with the strong tides, it puts a really intense amount of pressure on the bridge. And so that's one of the reasons that we really restrict our contractors to only work between May and October each year on the Hood Canal Bridge. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. Thank you. All right, so this
Who's doing the work? What company got the contract to do the work on the bridge?
for the center lock portion of the bridge, it is Masonic Construction.
Okay, thank you.
So I wanted to show this slide here because this just really points out exactly the work that we did in a few weeks ago when we had to take the closures for Hood Canal Bridge in May. And then we have, I'm sure you're aware, upcoming closures in middle of June to do very similar work. So what we're looking at here, this is what we call our pyramid and shock absorbers on the Hood Canal Bridge. So this picture you're looking at here is with the draw span open on the bridge. If you look to the far side of the picture, you will see that triangular looking pyramid. That's what we call the pyramid there that the cursor's on. That's what we had to go in and remove over the weekend and retrofit or make repairs to, including the concrete face that pyramid is attached to. Closest to us in the picture, you'll notice the square shaped frame. That is the shock absorber. So what happens here is as the draw span closes and that pyramid locks into that shock absorber, that's what helps keep the bridge in alignment. That's what keeps it straight when it opens and closes. So we went in the first weekend, there's one of these on the north side of the draw span and one of these on the south side of the draw span. We went in and made repairs to one of the pyramids already. And so coming in June, we have to go in and we have to make repairs to the other pyramid. So that I wanted to show this picture because I think that helps depict exactly the work that we had to go out and tackle and have to continue to go out and tackle. You can see that the shock absorber here has a bunch of corrosion around the bolts. It's kind of hard to see on the pyramid side, but the pyramid was in very similar shape. Our maintenance folks had to make emergency repairs to the pyramid because it was starting to come off of the face over there. We had to go in and we had to chip out a fair number of concrete or a fair amount of concrete there at the base of the pyramid and grout all of the concrete face back so that it could get a smooth connection between the pyramid and the face of the concrete. So lots of work still to come. We do have work for what we call our center lock beginning in September. The best way to describe the center lock, I don't have a picture of it, but the best way to describe the center lock is as the draw span closes and this pyramid locks into the shock absorber, the center lock is the mechanism that comes down and actually closes and locks and holds the bridge together. So it's the locking mechanism that holds the bridge together. Best way to think about it, pyramid and shock absorber that we're looking at here keep the bridge in alignment, and then the center lock is what actually locks the bridge together and closes it.
So is this bridge design like the best design potential for this passageway? Something that has to open, or is there some new design that if it was going to be built today that it would be done differently? And is that because it seems like that's quite a bit of maintenance that you'll have to do fairly frequently?
That's true, and it is a lot of maintenance. I can't say that I think there would have been a better design. It's a tough situation, right? Because we have to open the bridge a considerable amount of time throughout the year just for boat traffic coming in and out. I think any design or different design that you were to make, whether it be a floating bridge or a bridge above water, you're still going to run into the corrosive environment. That's one of the toughest parts about this bridge is just the corrosion, right? Anytime we get those wind and the waves and just being in that salty environment, everything likes to corrode on the bridge. So that's one of the major reasons that we have to go in and do a lot of these repairs is just the corrosion factor. And I'm not sure that whether it's a floating bridge or a bridge above water or any other type of structure, I think you're running into the same sort of corrosive environment and same sort of issues. Just a really tough environment to try to design a structure in, and even tougher to have to go out and maintain because of those factors.
Is there a place online that tracks how often the bridge opens, not in advance, but like historically in the last year or something like that, how often it opens and closes?
Mark, do you know the answer to that? I don't know of anything that necessarily tracks the number of openings.
We might be able to get that information, but to my knowledge, we don't have anything public facing or anything like that that tracks the openings.
Can you give us a general estimate of how often that it opens on a daily or weekly basis?
Not offhand. I'd have to see if I could find something like that.
I just know for some purposes, the state will say that Clallam and Jefferson counties are like our economies are part of Kitsap County. And I have always thought that that wasn't accurate in that, first of all, Kitsap is very Navy focused, kind of a bedroom community of Seattle. We absolutely are not. I used to work in Seattle daily, and, with the bridge closures, it was next to impossible to count on, what time I would arrive to my office because of that. And I just have always, I've always felt that our economies out here on the Olympic Peninsula were much different than what you have in that we're not part of this economy of Kitsap County by and large. But anyway, yeah, Mark, if you could provide me with some data on that, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll look into that for you.
Thank you.
Well, Colleen, I will add that I think it even catches our Hood Canal Bridge crew off guard a lot of the times when we don't have advance notice, or we have very little advance notice, is my understanding, when anytime that they bring a sub through or anything like that. I think our crew has, I'm throwing this out there, but I think only like a half an hour to an hour, somewhere around that time frame, to react to when a boat's actually coming through. So a lot of the times our crew doesn't even know either. We have crews on call out there that are required to open the bridge, but it's with very little notice. So it's tough for us at the same time to know exactly when we're going to have to open and close.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. We jump to the next slide. I believe this is where Ben's going to take over, and he's going to talk about some of the more specific projects that are going on up in the PA area that I already covered.
All right, yeah, thank you, Brian. So this is the Elwha River Bridge project. As many of you know, in the area, this kicked off here in April of 23. So we just started getting under construction. So, people in the area know that the bridge is, old. This is a nearly 100-year-old structure. It was originally constructed in 1926. So it's at its lifespan. It's served its purpose. So we're out here making these improvements to provide a new bridge structure. The new bridge will be a 500-foot long 3-span bridge. It's the schematic of what the proposed bridge that's being constructed now is shown on the top left of the screen. The significant improvements that this project will make is that if you're coming down the hill on 101 heading westbound on 101. Currently, we have a tight 25-mile-an-hour turn at that area. So the new bridge alignment will allow for a faster design speed through there. So we'll be at a 35-mile-an-hour design speed. This will allow, faster travel down the hill, and then also for traffic going up the hill heading eastbound to allow them to carry a little bit more momentum going up. Other improvements on this will be we'll be adding traffic transit stops on each end of the bridge, and then on the Olympic Hot Springs Road, we will be realigning that intersection to the new location once the roadway is shifted. We'll be adding in safety improvements that include acceleration lanes, turn pockets, lighting at the intersection. We'll also be adding in a parking area there that's kind of illustrated as the gray area between the Olympic Hot Springs Road sign and the new bridge structure. So for this construction, a lot of the impacts to traffic will be what you've really seen out there in the last couple of months. So it'll be limited to, reduced speed limits through the work zone, lane shifts, potential for alternating one-lane traffic. And then the more significant impacts will occur later in 2024 during placement of the bridge girders. We'll have some short-term traffic closures on 101. And then towards the end of our project here in 2024, because we're realigning US 101 and Olympic Hot Springs Road, we're going to be closing US 101 for 9 days and detouring traffic along SR 112 and 113. So those will be the major impacts that'll be occurring, but that'll be towards the end of 2024. And that's what I got on the LWAP project.
So there was a question in the chat that there's going to be a roundabout there at Olympic Hot Springs Road. Is that right?
No, it'll be what is shown on the screen on the top left where it says realigned intersection. So it's probably small and hard to see, but coming down the hill westbound, you'll have a left turn pocket to turn into there.
Okay.
You'll have acceleration lanes and also be lighted. So there is not a roundabout planned.
Okay. And was this project delayed?
This project has been I'm not sure if it would be called delayed, but WSDOT has had an emphasis to get this project on the ground and constructed. As everyone knows, the bridge is under constant monitoring due to the stream changes. So it has been an emphasis for us to get out there and construct this project. Permitting has been our I'd say what it's taken us to get through. So we've got all our permits now, and now we can construct it. We weren't able to do that without the permits. So it's been a lot of coordination with all the stakeholders.
And so it was permitting delays was the issue, right?
Obtaining permits would be, yes, is my understanding. Brian, do you know anything else on that?
No, I think that's accurate. It took us a number of years, Colleen, to obtain all the permits. We're working with the parks, we're working with ecology, WDFW, the Corps. So there is a number of different, and the tribe, of course, there is a number of different stakeholders involved in acquiring all of the necessary permits for this project. And it took our Environment and Hydraulic Services Office a long time to get everything that we needed.
Okay, thank you.
Lots of coordinated
5
efforts
years
is what
to
it came
acquire
down
the
to.
permits. Next slide, please. All right, so this is 2 roundabout projects on SR 104. These are just to the west of the Hood Canal Bridge. One is located at SR 19 and SR 104. The other is at the Paradise Bay Road intersection just on the west side of the Hood Canal Bridge. So again, these were supposed to be constructed this year, but we did have some delays in that project. So the construction will begin spring of 2024 and run through fall of 2024. So for these projects, there's not major roadway closures at SR 104 to be anticipated. It will just be your typical lane shifts, reduced speed limit, and temporary lane closures, 1 lane alternating traffic through the work zones for these projects. And the background behind these 2 projects, these are safety improvement projects. So these intersections have been identified as high fatality, high serious injury intersections, and so that's the purpose of putting in the roundabouts, is to help reduce high fatality accidents, and hope that, those are all reduced.
So Ben, what will the speed limit be once going through the roundabout, once it's completed on the one at the intersection at Paradise Bay Road?
So on roundabout design, the purpose of the roundabout is to slow down traffic. So you're technically your speed limit isn't reduced, but you have to go into the roundabout, and the design speeds, I think, we're wanting to get traffic down into very low speeds. Probably maybe don't tell me what the design speed, but I'm thinking, 10 to 15 miles an hour is a typical design speed through a roundabout. And that way, if you do get in an accident, it's just a small fender bender. You're not getting a car T-boned at 60 miles an hour as you would in the current situation if they don't, see traffic coming when they pull out. So roundabouts, get everyone slowed down, and it makes it safe.
Some of the truck drivers have been concerned that in the winter coming down the hill, heading to the roundabout, that if there's ice or something, they won't be able to slow down there. Has that been discussed with the design team?
I haven't been part of any of those discussions. I'm sure, we look at all those scenarios, and, inclement weather is something that we all have to, work around and be prepared for.
Okay. And what's the delay? I read somewhere that the expected delay per roundabout would be 4 to 7 minutes of increased commute time.
I can't speak on what that is. You're carrying your speed limit as you approach the intersections. You have to slow down, and I can't tell you if that's 4 minutes or 30 seconds on this. Piper, do you have any background on the design of roundabouts and how that affects traffic?
No, unfortunately, I'm pretty passage
Okay.
specific.
And so those two will be built in spring of 2024 and fall, or
Yep.
through the time. And so will there be lane closures during those, or what do you anticipate will be the traffic impacts?
The traffic impacts could be one lane closure, so alternating traffic through the work zone would be the most severe impact that's anticipated at this time. But there won't be any full closures of SR 104.
Okay, thank you. But it could be half-hour delays or hour-long delays, that kind of thing?
I can't tell you what the contract says, but typically we wouldn't allow a half-hour delay. It would be my understanding on a route like that. So they would have to find ways around that. So when we take lane closures, typically at WSDOT, we allow the contractor to take a lane, but in our contracts, we'll have set, okay, if we're seeing anything longer than 15 minutes, you have to open up you have to open up the roadway and reduce that delay. So typically our contracts are, that's how they're put together. This contract isn't complete yet, so I can't tell you what that specific language is on this project.
Okay, thanks.
So I've got a question.
Hey, Ben, this is Matthias Smith with the Laborers Local 252. On those two roundabouts, do you plan on starting and working those two projects simultaneously, or is it going to be one and then the other, or are they going to take place at the same time? Construction.
I am not sure on how the contract is set up for that, but I'd anticipate that some of the work occurs concurrently, and some of it is kind of independent of each other on it. So it will be under one contract. So it'd be one contractor performing the work on both projects.
Okay, thank you.
Rebecca, you had a question about emergency services. Do you want to ask that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, no, good. I was just kind of curious. I know we've had a couple of meetings with, community people trying to see how this is playing out. How are emergency services being coordinated? I can only imagine what it would be like to have to get, in an ambulance to go to somewhere. How is that all happening?
So on our construction projects, again, I don't know what the specific language is on this one, but typically if we're doing like a 1-lane closure, in our contracts, it requires the contractor to immediately open up the roadway to any emergency vehicles as they enter the construction site. So if their traffic's blocked in that way, it needs to be immediately opened to the lane of direction that the emergency vehicle would be headed.
Okay, so there's not any preparation or planning for that kind of thing. It's just,
Typically, if there's like a large, on the, if we think about the LWAP project, we're going to close that for 9 days. We'll do outreach to all of the emergency entities, so fire, EMTs, we'll be in communication with them, notifying them of the closure so they're prepared for it. And so it's not a surprise to them when an emergency happens at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday and the roadways is closed. We don't aim to surprise anyone like that. That's all thought of and planned out in advance.
great, thanks.
Art, I can add to that a little bit, Ben, and I'm sure Mark, you can add to that as well, but specific to the Hood Canal Bridge closures, I know we've been in constant communication with fire and EMS related to the Hood Canal Bridge closures and letting them know exactly what times we're planning to have the bridge closed, because we know that it's a significant impact on them, right? If they need to get someone across the bridge and it's closed for 4 hours and the contractor has something, the pyramid removed and there's no way that they can get across, we need to make sure that we're communicating, coordinating with EMS and fire to let them know exactly the closure times. Mark's job, I think, at communications does a great job in trying to stay in contact with those folks as much as possible. And I think it's really important that we also, of course, we all know that it's construction, right? Things change. Every once in a while, it takes the contractor an extra hour, or we have to leave the bridge, we have to close the bridge, an extra half an hour, or maybe close it a half an hour early. Anytime that we know those things, we're trying to get them out to the community, to the public, to EMS and fire as fast as possible so that they can do their planning ahead. So I think it's just a really coordinated effort between us and EMS and fire to make sure that the emergency services know exactly our plans, especially for the major closures coming up. Ben spoke to it really well. When we're in alternating one lane configurations on any one of these construction contracts, our contractors are real familiar with those situations and they know how to get the ambulances through in a timely manner. They can, like Ben said, they'll open the paddle for one side if they know that an ambulance is coming, and they'll let them go and they'll flush right through. So specific to the construction sites, I think it's handled really well. I just want to say that we really are trying to do our best to do a coordinated effort with fire and EMS for our major closures that we have coming up, and giving as much advance notice as possible so that they can do their planning as well. Mark, anything to add to that? I know that you've been doing a lot of outreach with EMS and fire on Hood Canal Bridge and stuff.
Yeah, well, I can give you a specific example. When we were working on Indian Creek and we were putting the girders on the bridge during the daytime, we had the contractor had folks out there. They had radios, they had scanners, because once the girder was in the air, the girder had to go in. There was no stopping it at that point. So they had folks out there monitoring, making sure nobody was coming before they put that girder in the air, because once it did, they couldn't open the roadway for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. So the people on the ground there are generally very cognizant of that as well.
I know OMC and none of the hospitals on the Olympic Peninsula have the ability to deal with certain types of heart issues. I've got, and so it's Olympic Ambulance that transports people, not EMS, I don't think. So I just wanted, and that happens regularly. If someone needs angioplasty or that kind of thing, they have to go over to Kitsap County for those types of services.
Yep, Colleen, I was using EMS, I think, as a general term. So yes, I agree.
Okay.
With you. Sorry, I was using EMS as a general term.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thanks. Maybe they are included in that. I just wanted to make sure.
Next slide, Piper. All right, so earlier we heard Brian talk about the fish passage program, and we saw the little fish icons splattered all over the screen on the Olympic Peninsula. So what is the fish passage program? Why are we out here? So culverts were first installed with the intent to move water from one side of the roadway without any consideration of fish passage. So it was just, we have water building up on one side, a stream, let's put a culvert in, get it to the other side. Our roadways, will stay intact, and we'll be conveying water from one side to the other purely for, hydraulic purposes. And we didn't really see the impacts to the environment that those did. So correcting fish passage barriers is, an important part of the state's efforts to protect and restore fish runs negatively affected by culverts on our state highways. So why are culverts barriers? This is illustrated on the left-hand side of the screen. So it can be a velocity barrier. The velocity in the pipe of the stream is too fast and the fish can't get through it. Oftentimes, there can be a pool on the outlet side that's too shallow. If there's a jump, so the fish can't get a running start or a jump into the culvert. The water depth in the culvert can be too shallow. The jump's too high, so too big of a jump, they can't get in there. And oftentimes, as shown on the bottom, juvenile fish get stranded, whereas the adult fish are strong enough to pass through the culverts. So WSDOT originally created the Fish Passage Barrier Removal Program in 1991. Consistent with the name, the program finds and corrects barriers that restrict or block fish passage. So on the screen here on the right-hand side, you'll see the map of Washington State. There is a lot of red dots on there. Each one of those red dots is a fish barrier culvert or restriction to fish passage. It's been identified by WSDOT. So we started that in 1991, identifying those and correcting them. We weren't moving very fast. So in 2013, a federal court injunction required the state to significantly increase efforts to remove and restore state-owned culverts that block habitat for salmon, bull trout, and steelhead by 2030. So that is, if you hear the fish passage and court injunction, that is the 2013 federal court injunction, which was came about from a group of tribes in the area that sued the state of Washington to get these fish barriers removed. So again, on the screen, you can see a blue outlined area. Everything inside of that blue outline would be considered the injunction area. So anything outside, so the red dots in Eastern Washington or Southeast Washington, those are outside of the injunction area. Everything that we're required to correct is technically inside of that blue area, even though, we're making an effort to correct fish passages in other parts of the state as well. And this definitely, this isn't just an isolated state thing. You see your counties and cities also correcting these fish barriers, even though they're not part of the injunction. So there was a question earlier, I think before Colleen, about, how do we pick these, or how do we pick fish passages? So the injunction requires us to correct restore 90% of habitat by 2030. So that's everything we're looking at. When you remove a barrier, we look at how much habitat we've gotten back by removing that barrier. So everything upstream of it, from the headwaters down to that barrier. So that's how we are looking at our projects and getting those. So how do we reach our goals and prioritize projects? So first off, we have a lot of these to do. So we look at the delivery method. So conventionally would be a bid build, where we just design the project and then we put it out to bid. The contractor bids it, low bid wins, and then they go build the project as we designed it. There's also two other methods, design build and progressive design build. So that varies from the bid build, where we give the contractor from just a concept or maybe no concept, and then they come up with a lot of the ideas and they come up with their own designs themselves on the progressive design build or the design build method. And so that gives them an ability to come up with better ideas, gets more minds in the room looking at things, and comes up with better solutions for those two methods. So also, as I said, we're looking at habitat gain. So we're looking at projects that, provide us the most benefit by opening those up. So if one barrier is going to give us 50 miles of habitat gain and the other one's going to give us a half a mile, we're going to do the 50-mile habitat barrier first. We look for partnership opportunities. So we work with, local jurisdictions, cities and counties, and try and team up with them on ones they're working on. So we can, tackle the same reach at the same time. We look at culvert condition. If you have a failing culvert, obviously we have to get those ones corrected so we can keep our roadways open. So those are high on the list. We look for ones without downstream barriers. We don't want to go and correct a fish passage that still has a blockage downstream of it. So basically, we go put a bunch of money into something, but we're not seeing the gains in it. So we try and stay away from those. We look for tribal input. They're one of our largest stakeholders. They're one of the main reasons we're out here. So we look for what they feel is important barriers to be removed, and we work with them to get those ones done. We look for project readiness. So, easy projects that have easy designs. We've gotten those out. We're working on those. Those are probably already in construction. And so we're saving the harder ones and, that are longer design aspects to them. Those are ones that are coming along later in our 23 effort. We also look for geographic bundling, and how that and public impacts. So you'll see the bundles, so we bundle projects in set areas. So we'll have a group of, the North Olympic, we have 5 bundles in the PA area. So, we want to go in there and impact, the public all at once. We look at, as pulling off the Band-Aid, get in there, pull off the Band-Aid, get the work done, and then get out of there. So that way we're not, 1 year we're doing a project, 2 years coming back the next in the area, 3 years, and then it's been 10 years of construction in one site. So we just try and get in and get out as soon as possible on that. Illustrated on the right, you can see that that graph starts to flatten out as we get towards that 90% goal. That's because as we get towards 2030, those projects are going to be more difficult, or they're going to have less habitat gain to them. So we're going to have to be doing more projects as we get towards the end to accomplish our goal and open up that habitat.
So Ben, on
Yep.
that last slide, it looks like we're about halfway through 2023. Has the state addressed about 50% of the barriers in the injunction area at this point?
So this is a projection on the right, and I would say I pulled this from our data. I would think would be accurate as of last fish window, so fall of 2022. This should have been updated and shown accurately. I can't tell you how far along or off track we are here in 2023 or 2024, but I believe this was generated in about 2022, so it should be accurate as of fall of last year.
And it's important to note that this is a measurement of habitat opened up. So to Ben's point about how we prioritize the projects that we're going to open up the most habitat, we got those done like 8 years ago. So those projects are already completed, and so it's more incremental gains from here on out to reach that 90%. So while I believe the number is shy of 200 at the moment of the 850 that were originally on the list, if you count number of barriers, those first ones that went out did open up significantly more habitat. So I think we're well on our way to meeting a good chunk of this goal, but it's a hard road ahead too with the remaining barriers.
Yeah. So it sounds like going forward, it'll be expensive incremental gains and does the injunction require you to get to 100%?
90%.
But the 1991 suit was that all barriers had to be removed?
1991 is when we just first started our program. There was no injunction or anything associated with that. We had just identified that there was an issue. And so
when you get to 90%, are you done, or is there an intention to try to clear all of them eventually?
I believe the intention would be to clear all of them. So after 2030, we'll be, working on those, correcting those as we can, removing, structurally deficient ones or, barriers that have been deferred to after 2030. But if there's a small habitat gain on a project, it's probably going to be, towards the end, or could come after 2030, just because it won't help us get to that 90% goal, but it still is a priority of us to correct those barriers.
I know you don't know that this may not be in your scope and everything, but the cities and the counties that have barriers, I understand that the lawsuit, well, the intention is that those should be cleared as well, but you know, I've talked to a lot of city managers or county administrators that they don't have the money to correct those. But is it, have you been hearing that the anticipation is that those will be lawsuits coming up, that they will also have to clear any barriers that they have
So before I
on
worked
roads they control?
Before I worked at WSDOT, I supported several jurisdictions down in the Thurston County area, and their intent was to stay ahead of any lawsuits and show a good faith effort in trying to correct those barriers. At least with the ones I worked on, I can't, speak for, Jefferson or Collin County or, any other counties. But that's typically what they're trying to get out there and stay ahead of any lawsuits. And, it's an issue, and they did the same things we did by just trying to get water from one side. And now we see the ramifications of, the looking in hindsight of how we've affected the, habitat in that area.
And to your point, Colleen, about the cost of the projects, right? And that's not necessarily in the coffers of a smaller organization or agency. Yeah. That was kind of built into the WSDOT program in terms of, there is the grant program for the Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Removal Board that is specifically for those local agencies to apply for competitive grants to pay for those projects. And it's viewed, that they're more competitive when it does kind of happen in conjunction with a WSDOT project. So we're correcting barriers on the same stream to open up a holistic passage. So there is funding opportunity out there for the local agencies. They're not, I don't think, expected to just pull it out of thin air. And then there has been kind of a windfall in the last infrastructure bill. So there's a lot of funding out there right now from the feds for fish barrier removals that I think folks are trying to take advantage of right now.
Okay, thank you. How much money is in the Brian Abbott Fish Barrier Grant Program?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can get that for you.
I believe the funding was being figured out during this year's legislative section. So my driveway has a culvert on it that is on the Brian Abbott list. So that's to be determined right now. So the financial impacts, it's not realized by the state. It goes all the way down to, private landowners where, we can't replace culverts on our own driveways because of this. They have to be fish passage structures. So there are those funding resources out there, but I believe that's being determined this year in the legislation session. So I haven't seen the outcome of that yet.
Okay, thanks.
Slide. All right, so this is the Leland Creek fish barrier removal project. This is 3 fish barriers that we're constructing or fish barriers we're removing and constructing with larger size culverts. The top 2 sites you see on the screen, the 290 milepost 290.3, 291.8. Those are both culverts being replaced with culverts. The bottom one, Leland Creek, that's the one you see under construction currently right now as you're driving south on 101 just north of Quilcene. One thing I want to point out on there is when you get into that 1-lane construction zone, that bypass we have, and you'll see this on other slides coming up, is it's called a shoe fly. So when you have that, bypass where you grow around the work site, that's what we term as a shoe fly, just for later on discussions. For this project, obviously we're in construction for Leland Creek. We'll be in that 1-lane bypass through August this year. The 2 northern culvert sites, those will both be constructed this year. And those will have an impact on traffic of US 101, as you can see on the slide here. Once we get into those 2 projects, we're allowing the contractor to close US 101 between July 16th and August 19th for up to 25 days. Those final dates aren't established, but it will be within that July 16th to August 19th window. And we should know 30 days in advance when that actual 25-day full closure will be. During that time, traffic will be detoured on Center Road from Quilcene up to 104 and then back on to 101. That's that blue line shown on the screen.
Alrighty, that brings us to the Jefferson Clallam counties. This is 6 barriers basically between Discovery Bay and Squim. So this project is under contract at the moment. It's design build. So 3 of the projects are expected to break ground this summer. They're circled here in red. Basically, Discovery Creek and the unnamed trib will build those 2-lane shoe flies, so traffic bypass, so traffic should not be obstructed at those sites. The Eagle Creek one is a smaller culvert, which they plan to get in a 5-day closure with a 1-lane bypass on it for those 5 days. So that would be expected to happen mid-August. There aren't fixed dates for that yet, but that would be the major construction going on for this project this year. It will continue for another 2 seasons to address the additional barriers, and all of these are, aside from Eagle Creek, are being replaced with bridges. So that's part of that duration for construction. Alrighty, sorry, that's my mouse. So then the other project that we've mentioned is the East Jefferson fish barrier removals. That includes Shine Creek on SR 104 and Swansonville Creek on SR 19 near Swansonville Road. So the Shine Creek project, actually, they just started mobilizing in yesterday. They're going to be building that 2-lane shoe fly detour for traffic. So again, traffic shouldn't be impacted. They may have some initial tree falling, I think this week or next week, where they'll, for the safety of traffic, be holding traffic just momentarily to get a tree down. But once those are out of the way, you shouldn't see any slowdowns whatsoever. And then the Swansonville Creek will require a full detour for 10 days, utilizing Center Road, but we'll be able to get the culvert in and get out of there and out of the way in real quick time. So that's the East Jefferson project. And then we also have the Coastal 29 project that was brought up. That one is a progressive design build, and it's going to be going on for a number of seasons because it's got 29 barriers in it. So the first bundle is kicking off this summer. It's the bundle shown in kind of the darker teal. So that's kind of south in Grays Harbor County. But the following bundle number 2, is the one that has 2 sites in Clallam County. So the construction may start to impact closer to home. Given that those projects are a couple years out, we don't have any details on those designs yet, but I guess I can say for the bundle number 1 that's going off this summer, that one traffic-wise will involve some 1-lane shoe flies with alternating traffic down south on US 101 there. Last but not least, we've got the US 101 North Olympic Peninsula project, also known as Tumwater, Lees, and Ennis, and we tacked on Chimacum at the last minute. So that project will not begin construction this year. I know that's kind of been a rolling start that we've messaged, but where it's currently at is we're finishing out the procurement phase of our design build contract. So we have 3 proposers, Kiewit, Walsh, and Hamilton Scarcella joint venture. They're all submitting proposals in 2 weeks is the deadline that we'll be scoring and evaluating, and then announcing the parent best value by the end of July. So we'd expect to award this contract to to the winning proposal in August. Then they will be given time to get their permits and finalize their designs, and so likely that the soonest we'd see any work on the project in terms of construction is 2024. But I do want to caveat that to say I believe, we don't have a winning proposal or a schedule yet, but we'll know that this fall. I believe Chimacum Creek will likely be our first project just because of the right-of-way timeline constraints we have there. So Lees, Ennis, Tumwater may not even break ground until late 2024, if not maybe even 2025. So we are a couple seasons out from seeing any active construction. The Tumwater site does involve, or we did allow a 9-month full detour that would go down SR 117, the Tumwater truck route, and then through town. So we worked out a detour agreement with the city of Port Angeles for that. And then Ennis and Lee's Creeks are required to maintain 4 lanes of traffic at all times during the day. They can take a lane at nighttime between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. To do night work that requires taking a lane. However, we did allow 56 56 days total calendar days for daytime lane reductions because we felt that was needed based on all of the constructability work and design that we did to make sure that we could get the girders and superstructure set. We have heavily incentivized the contractors though, and we'll find out exactly what that bought us, but we put about 12 million credits out there, which is kind of like a tax credit on their bid price for them to reduce the number of those days. And so without being able to promise anything because we haven't seen their final proposals, I'm encouraged and hopeful that we're going to see a reduction from what we allowed even in the contract. So we'll be able to publicly message that by the end of summer as far as what the winning proposal, what the traffic impacts are expected to be. And there'll be some heavy coordination and task force meetings as they progress into design with our winning proposer. So I think that's all we have to share in terms of our projects. We do have a couple slides here to show you how you can stay informed. I don't know, Mark, did you want to present these?
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can sign up for email updates for traffic and construction news. That's a good way to stay up to date. We have the Hood Canal Bridge page that is specific for the Hood Canal Bridge, so we'll post in advance dates and times of closures, especially during construction. During the Center Lock project, we will have those dates up there in advance. And if the bridge opens early, we update both hoodcanalbridge.com and our email list. We send something out. So those are really good ways to stay up to date on that specific project. And if you visit our website down there, I'll actually also drop a link in the chat if you're interested in signing up for Hood Canal Bridge email alerts. And we also have our online open house, which is the link at the top. That is our page that details all of the projects we have going on the North Olympic Peninsula this year. And we have our WSDOT app with our travel map, which we also keep up to date in real time as well for any delays that are happening on our roadways.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the presentation. We're a bit past 9 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, but I really appreciate your time and your presentation this morning, and we'll have this presentation up on our website. So if anybody wants to get an update, they can go there as well. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy your day. And again, thank you.